What is the giant something that lives in Lake Champlain? It's a legend told around campfires. It's the kind of tale that gets passed between strangers over drinks. It's a story passed down through local families. Hundreds of people have seen it with their own eyes. Fishermen, families, scientists, law enforcement officers. It has been photographed. It has been captured on video. And after more than 4 centuries of documented sightings, no one has been able to explain what it is. Lake Champlain stretches over 120 miles along the border of Vermont and New York, reaching depths of nearly 400 feet. It is cold, dark, ancient water, and according to an unbroken chain of witnesses spanning 400 years, it is not empty. This is the story of Champ, America's version of the Loch Ness Monster. In fact, Lake Champlain and Scotland's Loch Ness share a geological history. During the Pleistocene era, the same vast glacial waterways that carved Lake Champlain out of the northeastern landscape also shaped Loch Ness across the Atlantic. Both bodies of water were part of interconnected prehistoric seas formed by the same Ice Age glaciation. Some researchers have pointed to this shared origin as significant, arguing that if a large unknown creature exists in one, the same species, or a close relative, could exist in the other. It is one of the reasons that Champ and the Loch Ness Monster are so frequently discussed together. They may not be separate mysteries. They may be the same one. Lake Champlain sits in a long, narrow valley between the Adirondack Mountains of New York and the Green Mountains of Vermont. At its deepest point, it plunges to nearly 400 feet, cold, oxygen-rich water that has supported life for thousands of years. The lake is home to more than 80 documented species of fish. It feeds rivers, towns, and farmland across 2 states. And somewhere in its depths, according to hundreds of eyewitnesses, something else lives. The water in Lake Champlain is murky in places, clear in others. Its shoreline is jagged and complex, with dozens of bays, inlets, and islands that could easily conceal a large animal from casual observation. Scientists who study large bodies of freshwater have acknowledged for decades that bodies of water this size, this deep, and this complex could theoretically harbor species that have never been formally cataloged. Lake Champlain is not a small pond. It is a vast, ancient body of water, and its history of strange encounters goes back further than most people realize. The Abenaki people lived along the shores of Lake Champlain for thousands of years before European contact. In their oral tradition, they spoke of a great horned serpent in the water. This was not a story told to frighten children. It was a warning passed from generation to generation, describing something real that shared the lake with them. The Iroquois nations who also inhabited the region had similar accounts. Multiple independent indigenous cultures, with no reason to coordinate their stories, described the same thing in the same body of water across thousands of years of habitation. The first recorded sighting by a European explorer came in 1609 from Samuel de Champlain, the French cartographer and navigator the lake is named after. According to accounts drawn from his journals, Champlain described encountering a large creature in the water with rows of vicious teeth. However, this account has been debated, and some believe he saw a regional garfish. What is not debated is the sightings of a strange monster in the lake only multiplied. Through the 1700s and into the 1800s, as European settlement expanded along the lake's shores and steamboats began crossing its waters, reports came in steadily. Farmers working fields near the shoreline reported seeing large shapes moving through the water. Sailors described something surfacing alongside their vessels. Travelers crossing the lake by boat gave accounts of a long-necked creature watching them from a distance. By 1873, the reports had become so numerous and so widely known that P.T. Barnum, the famous American showman and circus promoter, took notice. Legend has it that Barnum offered a reward of $50,000 for the body of the Lake Champlain creature, which he intended to display as part of his traveling show. He never paid that reward. Nobody could deliver. But the fact that Barnum, a man whose entire career was built on separating reality from spectacle, believed the creature was real enough to offer that kind of money tells its own story. Into the early 1900s, the sightings continued. Fishermen, tourists, residents who had lived on the lake their entire lives, people who had no interest in fame, no book to sell, no reason to fabricate an encounter with something in the water. The accounts piled up across decades, consistent in their core details. A large animal, a long neck, a dark body, moving through the water in a way that nothing known to science in that lake should be able to move. The most significant piece of physical evidence in the history of Champ research came on July 5, 1977. Sandra Mancy was visiting Lake Champlain with her fiancé and her 2 young children. They had stopped near St. Albans Bay in Vermont, close to the water's edge. The children were playing near the shoreline when Sandra noticed something moving in the lake, something large, rising from the water not far from where her children stood. She described seeing a long neck, a small head, and a large dark body partially above the surface. The creature, according to her account, remained visible for several minutes before slowly submerging back into the lake. In the time she had, Sandra Mancy grabbed her camera and took a single photograph. That photograph became one of the most analyzed images in the history of cryptozoology. It was examined by scientists at the University of Arizona, by researchers at Middlebury College, and by multiple independent analysts over the years that followed. Their findings were consistent. The image showed no signs of manipulation or fabrication. The object in the water was 3-dimensional and real. Based on the surrounding environment used as scale reference, the portion of the creature visible above the waterline was estimated at between 12 and 15 feet, meaning the full size of the animal, including what remained below the surface, could have been substantially larger. Dr. George Zug, a senior scientist at the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of Natural History, reviewed the photograph and stated that nothing in the image was inconsistent with a large, living animal. That assessment came from one of the most respected natural history institutions in the world. Sandra Mancy did not sell her story. She did not seek publicity. For years after taking the photograph, she said very little about what she had seen, concerned that people would not believe her. When she eventually went public, investigators and journalists who interviewed her over the following years noted that her account never changed. Not a single detail shifted across years of repeated questioning. Consistency of that kind is one of the primary markers investigators use when assessing the credibility of a witness. In 2005, 2 fishermen on Lake Champlain captured video footage of something moving near the surface of the water. The footage was shot on a handheld camcorder and shows a dark shape moving through the water in a way that was not consistent with a wave, a current, a log, or any known species of fish documented in the lake. The video was reviewed by experts in marine biology and forensic video analysis. The conclusion reached was that the movement visible in the footage was being produced by a living animal. The footage was later featured on the Discovery Channel as part of a broader investigation into the Lake Champlain phenomenon. Additional sonar evidence has also emerged over the years. A sweep of the lake conducted in 2003 detected anomalies that could have been a large moving object at a depth of 35 feet in a section of the lake where no known species of that size is documented to exist. The object was tracked, moving through the water before the signal was lost. Taken individually, any one of these pieces of evidence can be questioned. Taken together, the indigenous oral traditions, the 4 centuries of eyewitness accounts, the Mancy photograph, the 2005 video, the sonar data, and the more than 300 formally documented sightings on record. The body of evidence for something large and unknown living in Lake Champlain is substantial. The question that follows every discussion of Champ is the same: what is it? The theory that has attracted the most attention over the decades is that Champ could be a surviving plesiosaur, a large marine reptile from the Mesozoic era, believed by mainstream science to have gone extinct approximately 66 million years ago, alongside the non-avian dinosaurs. The physical description given by witnesses: long neck, small head, large humped body, dark coloration, aligns closely with what plesiosaurs are believed to have looked like based on the fossil record. Critics of this theory point out that plesiosaurs were air-breathing reptiles, which means they would need to surface regularly. If a population of plesiosaurs existed in Lake Champlain, the argument goes, they would be seen far more frequently than they are. Supporters counter that Lake Champlain's depth, size, and complex geography could easily support a small, reclusive population that surfaces unpredictably and in areas of the lake that are sparsely observed. Other theories propose that Champ could be an extraordinarily large specimen of a known species. Lake sturgeon are native to Lake Champlain and are known to reach impressive sizes. Specimens of 6 feet or more have been documented in the lake. However, witnesses who have had close encounters with Champ consistently describe something that dwarfs any sturgeon on record, with physical characteristics, particularly the long neck, that no sturgeon possesses. A third theory suggests Champ could represent an entirely unknown species, something that has never been formally identified or classified by science. The history of zoology includes numerous examples of large animals that were unknown to Western science until relatively recently. The okapi, the giant squid, the coelacanth, all were considered myths or impossibilities before physical evidence confirmed their existence. The idea that a large, unknown aquatic animal could exist in a body of water as deep and complex as Lake Champlain is not, by itself, scientifically unreasonable. In 1982, the Vermont House of Representatives passed a resolution offering official protection to the Lake Champlain creature. The New York State Assembly followed with a similar resolution. Under these resolutions, Champ, a creature that has never been officially confirmed to exist by mainstream science, is legally protected from capture or harm in 2 states. That protection was not passed as a publicity stunt. It was passed because legislators in both states, having reviewed the available evidence and the volume of credible testimony from their constituents, concluded that the possibility of the creature's existence was serious enough to warrant legal protection. More than 300 sightings are formally documented. Witnesses include fishermen, law enforcement officers, scientists, tourists, and lifelong residents of the lake region. A photograph examined by the Smithsonian Institution shows an object in the water that analysts could not explain. Video footage reviewed by marine biologists was assessed as showing biological movement. Sonar data detected a large, moving object at depth where no known species of that size should exist. 4 centuries of accounts, multiple forms of physical evidence, legal protection from 2 state governments. The case for something living in Lake Champlain does not rest on any single piece of evidence. It rests on the weight of all of it together. And that weight is considerable. Whatever lives in Lake Champlain has managed to remain beyond the reach of formal science for more than 400 years. In a lake that is 120 miles long, 400 feet deep, and largely uncharted at its lowest depths, that may not be as surprising as it sounds. The lake holds its secrets well, but the witnesses keep coming, and the evidence keeps accumulating. Subscribe to Paranormal Depths for the strangest and most compelling cases from around the world.